Hey everyone, welcome back to Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics. Beautiful Saturday morning. We got some cars to diagnose. You can see the lot is pretty stacked right now. Got some interesting case studies coming up. What we got here? A 2005 Volvo station wagon. I think there's no fuel pressure. Crank no start. Look at this thing, 92 Oldsmobile Silhouette. Guy wants to scrap it. It's got a misfire, some transmission problems. This is way too cool to scrap. Maybe we'll make this the PHAD project van and hopefully find a buyer for it. And today we're working on a 2003 Dodge Neon. 2-liter, 4-cylinder, almost 140,000 miles. Customer complaint was he was driving it, pulling out, and he said it lost power. I talked to him a little bit further, and it seems like it doesn't shift. It's stuck in this limp mode, and he had to limp it here from town about 10 miles in first or second gear. Well, he made it. It's here. So let's dive right in. All right, first thing, let's check the engine and transmission for trouble codes. He said the check engine light eventually came on as he was driving it over here, but let's just start with the basics. Automatic AC, pretty base model. Let's see what the codes are. Camshaft sensor circuit intermittent. Okay, that could explain a problem. If it's if you lost the cam and it's just running off the crank, it definitely won't run right. It probably won't rev above 2,000 RPM. We could take it for a spin, but that's the fault code we have in there, 344. And transmission codes. Battery was disconnected. Fault immediately after a shift. Okay. So we got another trouble code here, 1790. I guess we could just look at some data, fire it up. Fired right up. So the camshaft sensors, that is working right now. Sounds pretty beastly. See, input RPM, output RPM, 2-4 switch, LR switch, C1, C3. So I think some of these are so these are just kind of the park neutral, what gear you're in. Trans temp, trans state, it's cold. Limp in, no. So let's customize the display here. We'll do engine RPM, gear, output RPM, input RPM. What else do we want to do? TPS. Do a pressure switch. No. Oil pressure switch. Limp in, that's important. Trans state. Let's start with that for now. Alright, so put it in reverse. Why is it saying, okay, there it is, reverse. That seems to work okay. I'm going to turn around and go for a test drive. Alright, so here's what it's doing. There's no power at all right now. Let's shove in first gear. No power. Because it drove fine for a little bit, it shifted to third, and now that it's warmed up, it's like slipping. Limp in, no. Pressure switch closed. Input RPM. Wow. This sucks. It's rolling backwards. There's no gears right now. There is reverse. There's no drive. So let's back it up and try to turn around. Alright, now we're back in first, and it seems to be driving, so let's keep it in first. Amazing. This should be a fun one. My friend up there, Matt from Matt's Motors, is coming to pick up some used motor oil. I'll leave a link in the description to his channel. He's done some cool videos back in the day. But we'll get back to this Neon very soon. Well, so much for my plan for not having a busy weekend. Our neighbor just dropped his truck off. Something to do with a low power complaint. More good video material. Back to the Neon. First thing I want to do, transmission problems. Pull it into the shop, check the fluid level, and then take it from there. Look up this code, see what it could be. Alright, let's check the transmission dipstick here. Well, it's right up to the hot mark. I know the car's not running, but there should be plenty of fluid to do its thing. And the fact that it kind of regained first gear, it's either a control problem or an internal transmission problem, one of the two. So I think we have to do a little more research on this 1790 code and see where that goes. Alrighty. Let's see if the troubleshooter can help. Code tips P1790. There it is. If the code is set along with any of these, perform tests on those codes first. Suspect error in input-output speed sensor operation. So input-output speed sensor, we saw in the data that those were fine. It did not lose those signals. If code P1790 is set with gear ratio codes, any of these, suspect hydraulic or mechanical problem. Input RPM sensor, output RPM sensor failure may cause code by sending wrong RPM information to the trans controller. Road test and scan sensor readings to verify proper operation. Look for erratic or no reading. Inspect sensors to confirm whether seals are present. Missing sensors may read correctly. Okay. Check for loose pin fit at sensor connectors. Sensors are AC voltage generators. Test connect AC voltmeter sensor, blah blah blah. Use the following reference numbers to locate appropriate wiring diagram for your application. That's it. So it's talking about these speed sensors, input and output RPM. So I don't think we're going that direction, because even when I was at a standstill, I put it in first, it wouldn't go at all. Then I put it in reverse, it backed up fine, and put it in first again, and it engaged. So at that point, you're not moving. These speed sensors should have nothing to do with the gear, engaging or not engaging. We can go on all data, look at the manufacturer's flowchart, but I still think it's a control side issue. Alright, we're on all data. We can zoom in a little bit here, set you guys up on a stable surface. So it says low fluid level can cause many transmission problems, so we already checked that. First thing to do, check and repair all engine DTCs prior to performing any transmission symptom diagnostics. That's actually key. And then, say verify flash level of PCM. Some problems are corrected by software. And then go to here, this test is set along with a gear ratio DTC. We did not have that. From the appropriate test for the gear ratio DTC stored. And then simple setting conditions here. After a speed ratio errors are stored, DTC is set if the associated speed ratio DTC is stored within 1.3 seconds after a shift. Okay. And we have it after the A shift. Interesting. So, again, kind of generic information, but what I want to do is clear out the engine and transmission codes and then test drive it. And then see if that cam sensor code comes back with the 1790. We can look at a wiring diagram, see if those two are tied together, and potentially, if one sensor is crapping out, pulling down like a 5-volt reference, it could affect other sensors. So, can't jump to conclusions yet. Reset the codes, test drive it. If they both come back at the same time, we'll go to the wiring diagram. Alright, in the transmission, clear out the codes. Make sure there's no more codes stored. No codes present. Engine. We just have to have the 344. I love how fast the scanner is on the neon. Clear codes, boom. No codes present. Alright. So back to our transmission menu. Data. Man, it's flying today. RPM, gear, input, output. Oil pressure switch, limp in. 2-4 pressure switch, LR pressure switch. Trans temp, trans state. And we had that battery code in there, so we might as well look at the voltages. Alrighty. So start her up. No more check engine light. Put in reverse. Reverse. Okay. So we have input RPM. I don't know what that is. When you're neutral, that should go up to about the engine RPM. What about the output RPM? Right here. Put in first gear and engaged. First. Input, output. Second, nothing, no power. Should go back to first. It does not. Input RPM. So right now, if you're standing still, your input and your output RPM should be the same. Back in park. Reverse. 0 and 0, that's good. It says reverse. We have reverse gear. We can move backwards. Okay. Neutral. And first. It engaged. It says second. And it's slipping because the input RPM is high and the output RPM is low. Not good. Ignition voltage, that's good. want to see what happens with these pressure switches. In reverse, 2-4 pressure switch open, LR pressure switch open, neutral, both open. So that one's closed now. The 2-4 is closed. However, we are slipping. Okay, so let's save that data and see what codes we set. There you go, 1790, fault immediately after a shift. Okay, it's the only code we set here. Let's go back to the engine. No codes there. Transmission controller fault. Okay, that's the 1-trip code. So, not related to the camshaft position sensor. This is not looking good. What is CVI display? Interesting. Oh, this is like probably the adaptation values. RPM display. Gear second. What if we try 3 and 1? So, transmission range sensor is good, but that guy, not good. So reverse works. Put it in drive. ECAM is shifting to first gear. Input RPM should be 0 right now. It's slipping. So what we can do is back up the driveway. I don't know if I can pull it back in my garage. Now let's see, what if we shut it off. Let's reset everything. Put it back in drive. It says first. Input RPM 0, output RPM 0. So it's not like something's worn out, it's engaging. Definitely wants to go. But after that shift, it won't be happy. 2-4 pressure switch open. Still in first gear. Tries to shift, no beans. Now it's in second, and it's stuck in the limp home. Back it up. Shift into first. Huh, this is first. We're going. Nothing. When you're in second gear, it doesn't like it. Slow down again. Put it in reverse. Back in drive. If it says second in drive, bad. Input RPM, not 0. Again, let's try. Shutting it off. Turn it back on. Fires right up. Put in drive. First. So we should be able to go. So that's interesting. Shutting it off seems to reset it. But as soon as it tries to shift the second, no beans. So one more time, just for consistency. Back in park. Shut it off. Turn it back on. Drive. First. So if I keep it in first, let's see if we can at least so if it doesn't try to shift to second, we're good. So I guess you can, that's the fix, just keep it in first. It'll get you there. Slowly but surely. Interesting. So it doesn't like that shift from first to second. Reverse works fine. First gear works fine. All right, good information. So what's the game plan now? We have to find out exactly what the controller does, the TCM, to shift these gears and see if the signals, you know, the pressure switch 1, 2, 2, 4, how that all works, and verify the signals there. And then we're going for either the controller or the transmission. Interesting. So I guess once it tries to shift in the second and it feels that something's wrong, it sets that code and does not shift back in the first until you restart the car. Very curious.